The information found in this podcast is not a substitute for help from a licensed mental health professional. Hi, and welcome to the Women in Depth podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Lourdes Viado. Join me as we explore the inner lives of women, their struggles, fears, hopes, and dreams. We'll go beneath the surface and take a deeper look at what is hidden, unknown, uncertain, and uncomfortable. Hi, and welcome back to the podcast. I'm excited to welcome back Janet Lucy, who has graced Women in Depth twice before with her wisdom and insights. She was here with us in episode 91, The Heroine's Journey, The Call to Transformation, and then also in episode 95, along with Terry Allison, who was her co-author for Moon Mother, Moon Daughter, which we will talk about a little bit more again later. Today we're very fortunate because Janet is here to talk with us about a children's book she has written called Mermaid Dreams that's going to be released very soon, later this spring or this summer. So we get a little bit of a sneak peek into this incredible book. Janet, in addition to being the co-author of Moon Mother and of course writing this most recent children's book, is also the author of The Three Sunflowers, an award-winning children's book for all ages, and the new bilingual version, Los Tres Girasoles. Janet has been a contributor to Mothering, Mama Load, Natural Solutions, The Sun, Skirt, and Real Travel magazines. Janet is also the founder and director of Women's Creative Network, WCN, in Santa Barbara, California, a consulting business emphasizing intuitive, creative, and professional development through writing. Janet offers individual consulting and counseling, women's weekly writing groups, workshops, and international writing retreats in Mexico, Costa Rica, Peru, and Italy. Janet has 2 grown daughters who live internationally, and she is grateful they all live under the same moon. Welcome back, Janet.
Thank you, Lourdes. It's great to be here. I always enjoy our conversations.
Oh, I do too. Thank you so much. As I mentioned earlier, it's very easy for me to really just get caught up in the moment of our conversations. And so I actually had to make a note to myself to focus more.
Well, then I will do the same.
It's not a negative. It's just I really am just so moved by your work and our conversations. And so I wanted to just start off, kind of at the beginning with what inspired you to write Mermaid Dreams?
Well, I'll start by saying I've had a dream of my own to write a book about mermaids for children for quite a while. And several ideas have drifted through. And as I really sat with them all, what became clearer and clearer to me is that I wanted to write a children's book about a mermaid of color. After a lot of research and exploration, really seeking mermaid literature for children, I noticed that there is an absence of images of mermaids of color. Most of the popular literature and movies depict mermaids as stereotypically blonde and often blue-eyed and fair-skinned. So that part felt really important to me. And as you know, from my first book, Moon Mother, Moon Daughter, I've been very drawn to the worldwide goddess culture. And that is in part what that book is intended to illuminate, Moon Mother, Moon Daughter. So it seemed natural to call in another goddess. There was a series of events, as always, very synchronistic, that really brought the divine inspiration together. In part, it was inspired by a real character in my life, a little girl who I know, and also her mother. And she very generously shared her story with me, and not only her own dreams of being a mermaid, but some fears she was having, fears of nighttime, night terrors, nightmares. And so her dream and her experience became really the line of the story, as I sought ways to bring some kind of comfort or reassurance into her experiences. I was gifted by really the visit of Yamaya, African goddess, and she showed up really offering her myth to me to weave into the story. And so it was just one of those moments where I really saw all the dots connect, and how I could take this true, real story of a little girl who I feel has many universal dreams and fears and wishes, and then weave in a goddess. And so that's really how it all came about. And then it was a process, of course, of really letting the story tell itself to me and then through me.
I love that you mentioned synchronicity, because I remember in one of our previous conversations when you mentioned that you were working on this book, and I knew immediately that, I was going to ask you to talk about this, to come back on and have a conversation when you were ready, when the time was right, because even for me, I've had different experiences that were only meaningful to me growing up around mermaids. And so that meant something when you told me you were writing a book about this. So before really diving into Yamaya's story and all of the yummy, juicy stuff that we are going to delve into, I was wondering, for you, what is the significance of the mermaid to you?
It's a really great question. Well, mermaids are so mythical, they're so magical, and even really rather mysterious. People actually believe there have been real mermaid sightings. They're so much part of our folklore, our mythology. They are the goddesses of the sea. And what I came to find out about Yamaya is that not only is she the goddess of the ocean, she's also the goddess of dreams.
Wow.
So it was really natural to bring her in as the mermaid, not only in the water element, but also in the dream time. So yeah, mermaids, really mystical, magical creatures. I think, so many of us have a fascination with them.
And in your book, Moon Mother, Moon Daughter, actually just going to pull a quote from it. At the beginning, I think it's in the introduction, you write, mythology and storytelling are age-old methods of passing along wisdom, sharing experience, and explaining or teaching about life. And for our listeners who, perhaps are not familiar with Moon Mother, Moon Daughter, each chapter includes myths about women and goddesses. And Janet and Terry use the goddess as an archetype, and each story introduces the goddess's key qualities and concepts. And so I was hoping you could talk to us about Yamaya. And, you've started to do this already, but take us a little bit deeper into her key qualities and the concepts associated with her.
Okay, let me start from her origins then, because according to mythology and her legends, she was originally what's known as a river Orisha, which is a type of spirit. And she lived in the rivers and streams in West Africa. And her people are the Yorubans. And so that was where she originated in that culture. And when her people were enslaved and taken from Africa, she followed them in the ocean alongside their slave ships, the ships in which they were enslaved. And that is how she was said to have become an ocean goddess or mother of the ocean.
Wow, that's a beautiful story.
Yeah, it really is. And so, over time, she traveled not only to the Americas, but, many other places as well. So she really is considered the mother of the seven seas. She goes by many names. There are many pronunciations of her name, Yamaya, and she is known as Mother of the Water, Mother of the Ocean. In Africa, she's known as Mama Wata, and she appears in many cultures' histories.
I love too as you're describing this origin story, that she's present with her people wherever they are and regardless of whatever struggle or suffering that they're experiencing. I think that's really powerful. And also that in Jungian psychology, the ocean symbolizes life, it symbolizes the unconscious, it symbolizes all that is possible. It's a source of creativity, but it's also very terrifying, just like the ocean can be. So I really feel that Yamaya, the symbolism of the mermaid, the storyline of addressing the fears of this little girl, really, they speak powerfully through the images and the associations and meanings.
Yeah, I mean, I really appreciate that connection between water, the sea, emotions, intuition, and the dream time.
Yeah.
And so it's natural that Yamaya would inhabit really all of those realms.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's beautiful.
And she is a comforter. She is a protectress. That is her nature. She swims alongside the ships to comfort her people as they're undergoing this great tragedy. And she appears to children in dreams, children who have nightmares. So she shows up a lot as a nurturer, a comforter, as a divine mother.
Yeah. And so, in Moon Mother, Moon Daughter, the relationship between mother and daughter and strengthening that connection is a thread that underlies the whole book. And again, in this story, Mermaid Dreams, it's about a mother and a daughter. And I think it's amazing because, again, Yamaya is also the great mother in many ways, right? So I was wondering if you could speak about how this story strengthens or depicts this connection between mother and daughter.
Yeah, well, I love that in this story, the primary characters are the mother and daughter, as well as Yamaya. And I feel that the mother in the story brings her own wisdom to the daughter. She knows what she needs and when she needs it, and she's very present and she's very supportive, and they're very connected. And still, at the end of the story, she allows her daughter, this freedom to dive through this wave on her own. So it feels, very symbolic that way too. The role of the mother as nurturer, support, source of wisdom, comfort, and also the one who empowers. So I guess it's only natural that that would show up in a book that I would imagine.
Yeah. And I think too, like you said, I mean, all of those experiences of being a mother, even of, the one of letting your child step into something that might be too much, might be frightening, might be scary, but knowing that this has to happen also.
Mm-hmm.
In Moon Mother, Moon Daughter, you address different coming of age concepts for daughters, such as the importance of trusting our intuition, which I think is a big part also of Mermaid Dreams, listening to that part of you, that old wisdom, that deep part of you that knows, understanding natural cycles and rhythms, finding and speaking one's true voice, and, the importance of being mentored, of finding a community. Those are all concepts that each chapter in Moon Mother, Moon Daughter speaks to through the story of a goddess. And so what concepts does Mermaid Dreams address?
That's a really great question. Well, I feel like this really addresses the dream time, and there is a chapter in Moon Mother, Moon Daughter that specifically focuses on dreams. One of the things that I wanted to illuminate in this story is this power that we all have to interact with our dreams. And I have long been fascinated with dreams and been, quite a lucid dreamer. And I've been really inspired by the idea that we have, that power within us to change the the story in the dream and therefore make that same transformation in our own psyche. And I would say that probably that concept is what I really wanted to illuminate here. It's probably all very intuitive, also simply by the nature of water,
Yeah.
and the value of emotions and expressing emotions, having fears heard and understood. That felt important to me, that the little girl, Maya, have a place to have her fears expressed. So, yeah, emotions, intuition, dreams, wisdom, nurturing, all of those concepts feel that they exist in this book also.
I really love that with this book, there's a turning inward. That's a theme, a strong theme. And also this knowing and trust and belief in the reality and the value of what cannot be seen or measured.
Mm-hmm.
Right? I think that, children get that, right? They understand, fantasy, imagination, play, and we get disconnected from that as we grow up. And I love that in this story, the mother is teaching her daughter how to, find that place, how to listen to it, and to help her experience and understand how that is a support for her at all times. What a powerful gift to teach anyone that you can go within, you can trust your dreams, you can trust your feelings. That's not a message that I would say our society really supports or teaches or even thinks of in a positive way.
Yeah, I appreciate you acknowledging that about the turning inward. In the story, one of the things that Mama does is she shows Maya this shell, the spiral shell that was left on the sand on the island where she is from. And she tells Maya that not only is this known as one of Yamaya's first gifts to humans, but it's a place where they can hear her voice. And any of us who have spent time at the beach and, picked up shells and held them to our ears know that there's a sound that we hear inside the shell, whether, we hear that as the sound of the ocean or the sound of the ocean's voice. I also feel that it just represents listening to the inner voice. And I believe that very subtly that concept is offered here, that we can listen for the voice of wisdom within ourselves.
I think that's powerful. And I don't know if it's subtle, Janet. I think it's pretty strongly.
Well, the image is beautiful. This book is so beautifully illustrated by Colleen McCarthy Evans. And that image, I would be hard pressed to say which image or images are my favorites. And that certainly is one of them, where Mama is holding the shell in the palms of her hands. And it just has such a luminous quality. It feels magical. Mm-hmm.
And I love to, like going along with, with this whole image, that in order to hear the shell or the ocean, the shell, or to hear our inner voice, you have to get really quiet.
Mhm.
And it's something that only we can hear. The sound that we hear in a shell, it's only for us.
Also, being underwater, there isn't a lot of noise. There is sound, and it's a really quiet realm. And underwater, it's a place where we can hear. We can hear our own voices in that silence. I've been a swimmer my whole life in oceans and pools, and it's one of the quietest places I seek.
Yeah. So this book really, what stood out for me when I was reading it was, I know this is a children's book, but, um, this is really a book that speaks to, actually to, it's universal. It speaks to anyone. But, since our focus is on mothers and daughters and women, I really felt that this story would be meaningful for any woman, whether she's a mother or not, whether she is a young woman, a maiden, a mother, or a crone. This is a story that is truly universal.
And all of those aspects are depicted from Yamaya to Mama to Maya. We have the maiden, the mother, and even though Yamaya isn't identified as an elder, I think she holds that place of the wise divine mother.
Yeah, and you beautifully pulled in that because I was wanting to touch on these cycles, these natural cycles, and the importance of some way to bridge the transition between each, whether it's through ritual, whether it's through storytelling. But in this story or in this book, Mermaid Dreams, that cycle and the connection between those cycles, it just happens very seamlessly.
Mm.
You can also see how, regardless of I guess, our chronological age and the roles in our lives, we have all of that within us. Every woman is the child, or the maiden. Every woman is the mother, whether she's a mother. When you think of a woman bearing children, and every woman also has that crone inside her.
Well, I'm laughing to myself because I'm agreeing with what you're saying. I find that when I write these quote unquote children's books, they really are for all ages. I feel that way about The Three Sunflowers.
Yeah.
So that's, considered a children's book. I feel that the content is relevant to, we'll say, children and adults of all ages.
Yeah.
And I do feel that. I feel the same way about Mermaid Dreams. And, even with Moon Mother, Moon Daughter, I never felt that book was specifically or exclusively for mothers with daughters. I have always felt that book is for all of us who are daughters of the divine feminine.
I felt that way too with Moon Mother, Moon Daughter. I really felt like it was a source of potential healing for all women who perhaps needed to go back and revisit these different areas or these concepts, and can go back and fill in that space or heal that space. But it really helped a woman to become, I think, more connected and aware of herself in a very deep way, all parts of her.
I absolutely agree with that. And I know that for Terry and I, as we were researching and writing that book, that was our experience, that there was so much about it that was really deeply healing for us.
Yeah.
Perhaps if we hadn't gotten a lot of that wisdom and guidance from our own mothers, as well as born into a culture, a patriarchal culture that didn't celebrate and value those divine feminine qualities in all of us. So, yeah, that book too, I feel really is for all of us.
We've touched on this next question throughout the conversation,
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
but I wanted to go back to it because I wrote this down when you were talking, and you were sharing that in this process of writing Mermaid Dreams and also your inspiration, it really helps to speak to the universal dreams, fears, and wishes of all women. And so I was hoping that as we wrap up, you could perhaps share what stands out for you when you hear that universal dreams, fears, and wishes.
Well, I believe that we share universal fears and self doubts. And I talk about that in the heroine's journey, that we all have somehow internalized these beliefs, these false beliefs, that we are not enough, that we are not deserving or worthy, and that if we are true to ourselves, who will love us? Or that we're simply not lovable. And so I believe that those internalized false beliefs often become the basis of our fears. And, the there's fears that we don't have what it takes to live the life, quote unquote, of our dreams or of our soul's calling, that we don't have what it takes. We don't have the power. We don't have fill in the blank. So, in this particular story, Maya, she really wants to go into the ocean, which is literal and also quite symbolic. She
Yeah.
wants to go into the depths. She wants to go into this big, powerful element, and she's afraid. She doesn't believe she has what it takes. She believes if she could breathe underwater like a mermaid, then she would be able to. And so, really, that dream or that wish of hers really is a wish for, a certain power in her life.
So it's almost like it's that experience we all have where we know that we want something and we know that we're afraid and don't feel that we are capable or equipped to go there. But we have this idea, this belief that if only, and then fill in the
Mm-hmm.
blank,
Right, right.
then I could.
And I believe that those almost always go hand in hand. When we have an aspiration, a dream, deeply held desire, we quite often, on the other hand, have a belief, a deeply internalized belief that we don't have what it takes to somehow fulfill that.
I agree with you on that, Janet, that is a universal fear that we carry. I see it, all around me and, of course, with my own experience. And so I love that, in this children's book, it so simply, beautifully, and powerfully illustrates this and also shows what to do with this challenge, what to do with this fear.
Yeah, and I think we can also lens it through the heroine's journey because, in the heroine's journey, it begins with the call.
Right.
And Maya certainly has a call. She wants so much to go into the ocean. She wants to go into the ocean. She wants to be a mermaid or like a mermaid. And so the second stage of the heroine's journey is gathering allies and resources. And so in the story, some of them are really clear and obvious. I mean, her mama is certainly her greatest ally. And then Yamaya comes to her too as a resource. And, this symbolic shell on the day that she wakes up and she's ready to go to the beach, she's wearing a cowrie shell bracelet. And that is one of Yamaya's symbols also, the cowrie shell. We put that on her in that scene, really to represent something symbolic that we can take with us when we want to be reminded of a strength or a courage that we have, of some kind of support that we have. So in many ways, of course, the story does follow that heroine's journey.
I love how, Mermaid Dreams is just, you cannot separate it from all the other work you've done, Janet. If everything that we're talking about weaves in, the moon mother, moon daughter, weaves in the heroine's journey. It's just, I love that. It's beautiful.
Well, I appreciate you, Lourdes, because I believe that you see that and you reflect that back to me, even when it's not really conscious for me. It just seems to be what comes through me.
Yeah.
I feel like this is what is, in the blueprint of my soul, these myths, these goddesses, the heroine's journey. And so, of course, it just keeps showing up in what I express and create. And so I really thank you for reflecting that to me today.
Well, I thank you for the work that you've done, the writing that you share with the world so that we can also remember this blueprint that we all carry. And yet you are able to bring to life and do it in a way that with the stories and the myths, it's a very gentle but powerful reminder of this soul blueprint that we all carry. So, Janet, for those who are looking forward to reading this book, can you share a little bit about when it's going to be released and where people can find it?
Yeah, I would like to say that it will be released probably sometime at the end of the spring, if not early summer, in a really valuable stage of the process right now, which is asking for feedback. So we have created the PDF of the book, which is what I sent to you, and we have a few proofs that we've created. And not only are we going over it all with a very fine-toothed comb, we are asking people for their feedback and asking friends who have children or grandchildren or students, other children in their lives, if they would please read it to the children and just offer us any of their spontaneous, authentic responses. And it's just such a valuable process. So that's where we are right now. And I feel like we're getting so much of the affirmation that we need. I think we're pretty close. Yeah. One of the things that we have spent quite a bit of time on, and when I say we, I refer to my publishing team, which includes Colleen McCarthy Evans, the illustrator, and also Erica Romer, who's the publisher at Seven Seas Press. We've created a discussion guide at the back of the book.
I love that discussion guide. It's
Thank
wonderful.
you. It
Yes.
feels important to have something to follow the story with, whether it's questions or an activity or even a few more facts. It feels that there's just a really rich opportunity there also. Just really been working with those questions to make them age appropriate, to make them relevant, to make them really meaningful. So we're feeling pretty close to that. And the other thing that we are going to include is a sources and resources list with just a few different titles in a few different areas. Some other children's books that might touch on similar concepts or themes, other resources for adults. And yeah, just to kind of keep it all going, keep it all alive.
Yeah, and I have to say, I want to say this for our audience that the discussion guide also includes activities, which I really appreciate too, because sometimes, you want to take the insights or the information and do something concrete or tangible with it. And I love that you provide these activities to help do that. I really liked also having the children practice the long, deep breathing, for when Yamaya calms the wave, because that is so important to give children a way to calm these seas and these oceans, So I really appreciated the activities. As a mom, I'm going to say that was very valuable.
Thank you. I appreciate knowing that. And I also feel that, children are such natural storytellers. Their imaginations are so alive. And so the opportunity, the invitation to write their own story or draw a picture, of a dream or something, that they take from this particular story just feels like another way to remind children of what they have, within them.
Yeah.
So much of it's about imagination. I would say that's probably one of the key concepts too. Having a dream. I do feel like imagination is one of the concepts in the book. Dreaming, daydreaming, imagining oneself in a certain way.
Yeah. So many gifts, I think, for mothers, for fathers, for anyone reading this book. Because again, our society has become so focused on logical, rational thinking, what can be measured. And I love that this helps kind of balance that out a little bit more by, talking to the reader about, for example, dreams and the value of dreams. And I love this because, as a mom, I'm also encouraging my child to remember his dreams, to talk to me about his dreams. And so to see that also in this story, is just really reassuring.
I really appreciate hearing that.
So if there are listeners who'd like to get in touch with you, to learn more about your work, to possibly work with you, what's the best way for them to find you and get in touch with you?
Always the best way to connect with me is through my website, which is Janet Lucy Inc., Inc. with a K, janetlucyinc.com. And then there is not only the menu of all the different things I offer, as well as the different books, also contact information. And I love hearing from people who have found or are looking for any of this material. Just a quick thing I'll share with you. I get so much beautiful feedback from around the world about Moon Mother, Moon Daughter. Always love hearing from women who have found the book, are using the book, in circles and groups with their own daughters. And I'm often asked if there are other resources or guides to go with it. And so Terry and I are currently in the process of creating a couple of companion guides.
Oh my gosh, I'm so excited.
Yeah, go with Moon Mother, Moon Daughter.
That's wonderful.
Yeah, and we go, chapter by chapter, and we offer, the first guide we're creating is for anyone who would want to facilitate what we call a moon group for mothers and daughters or just for the girls alone. So very specific guide to facilitate that. And then we're also creating a companion journal for the girls with really specific prompts and ideas that they can write about based on each chapter.
Oh my goodness, Janet, this is so exciting. I can't wait for all of this. Wow. You will have to let me know when all of this is coming out because we'll be sure to update the show notes. Also when Mermaid Dreams comes out, we'll be happy to update the show notes so that listeners can find the book very easily. And we're also going to include in the show notes the previous episodes that you've been on the podcast.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Janet. And again, I'm so honored to have this conversation with you. And I'm looking forward to getting my own copy when it's released. So I'm very excited.
Well, I will send you one when it's hot off the press. And Lourdes, I want to say thank you so much for the many ways you see and reflect my work back to me. It's really valuable to have your reflection.
Thank you so much. It's an honor.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for listening to the Women in Depth podcast. I hope it brings you a deeper understanding of yourself and others, and that you found some insights that illuminated and inspired. If you like what you hear, please consider supporting Women in Depth with a one-time or recurring donation. Any amount is appreciated and helps us continue to provide free, quality content for the world. If donating resonates with you, you can find the donation link on today's show notes. You can also follow Women in Depth on Facebook and YouTube, and if you haven't yet, please subscribe on iTunes. Again, thank you so much for listening, and see you next time.